Windows Recall is a feature Microsoft built into Copilot Plus, PCs that takes periodic screenshots of everything on your screen, every few seconds, continuously, as long as you are using the computer, runs optical character recognition on those screenshots, and stores the results in a searchable local database. Every email you read, every document you opened, every banking screen you visited, every password field that appeared on screen, captured as a screenshot, processed through optical character recognition, indexed by AI, and stored in a searchable database on your machine. Microsoft originally launched Recall in June 2024 before pulling it within days after security researcher Alexander Hagena published a tool called Total Recall that demonstrated the screenshot database could be extracted and read by any attacker who gained access to the machine. Microsoft spent over a year redesigning Recall's security architecture around virtualization-based security enclaves, AES 256 GCM encryption, and Windows Hello biometric authentication. Microsoft's VP of Enterprise and OS Security, David Weston, wrote publicly that using VBS enclaves with Windows Hello enhanced sign in security allows data to be briefly decrypted while you use Recall to search, and that this provided a robust set of controls against known threats. The feature relaunched as an opt-in feature on Copilot Plus PCs in April 2025, after Microsoft's VP of Enterprise Security wrote publicly that the redesigned architecture provided a robust set of controls against known threats. In March 2026, Hagena published Total Recall Reloaded, which performs the same database extraction that Microsoft had spent a year and significant engineering resources claiming it had prevented. GeekWire's April 2026 analysis confirmed that security researchers keep saying the feature raises security red flags 1 year after its rocky launch, and that journalist Zach Bowden wrote in January 2026 that Microsoft was pulling back its Windows 11 AI push with a major Copilot and Recall rethink. The University of Pennsylvania's IT administrators announced in an official statement that Recall introduces substantial and unacceptable security, legality, and privacy challenges. The word unacceptable appeared in bold in the original statement. The university banned Recall across all Windows environments on campus. Microsoft's most high-profile AI privacy experiment had been banned by a major research university, pulled back internally according to Windows Central, and broken by the same researcher whose original tool forced the first delay 2 years earlier. The trajectory was not a story of iterative improvement. While this was happening to Windows across 2 years of controversy, delays, redesigns, and renewed controversy, our Linux was doing something categorically different. Nothing. It was not capturing screenshots. It was not building a searchable database of user activity. It was running the code its developers had published, doing what that code documented, and collecting only the data the user configured it to collect. The contrast between what Windows Recall represents and what Linux's architectural approach to privacy offers is not subtle, and it was not created by Recall. Recall simply made it impossible to ignore. Computing for geeks. April 2026, Linux versus Windows comparison, current as of April 2026, and drawing on StatCounter and W3Tech's market share data, stated it directly. For privacy-conscious users, Linux is the clear choice. No telemetry by default, no advertising, no forced Microsoft account, and full transparency in what the operating system does with your data. That transparency is not a feature that was added to Linux by a privacy-conscious developer. It is a structural property of open source, software that has existed since Linux's first release in 1991. Linux Journal's August 2025 analysis confirmed that unlike proprietary systems where code is hidden from public scrutiny, Linux distributions are open source, meaning anyone in the world can inspect the source code, audit for vulnerabilities, or suggest improvements. This is the specific property that makes a Recall equivalent impossible to add to Linux without the entire developer community seeing it immediately. This creates what Linux Journal described as a self-reinforcing cycle of trust and accountability. ExpressVPN's May 2026 ranking of the most secure operating systems confirmed that Windows collects lots of telemetry data by default, some of which cannot be fully disabled, and that Windows is the most targeted operating system by malicious actors with zero-day vulnerabilities being regularly exploited. The same analysis found that Linux offers transparency through open source code, configurability that allows users to strip away unnecessary software and remove hidden telemetry, and a development model where updates often arrive within hours of a security flaw being reported compared to the slower commercial update. Cycles of Windows. What Windows has built in 2025 and 2026 is an AI layer that creates a comprehensive visual record of everything a user does on their computer. What that record contains, what vulnerabilities it creates, and what it means for the concept of a private personal computer is the subject of this entire video. What Linux has maintained across decades of development is an Architecture where no such record exists by default, where every process running on the system is auditable, and where no corporation's commercial interests determine what data the operating system collects about you. The resource recycling analysis from April 2026 documented the specific implications of Recall's data architecture in terms that extend far beyond the immediate security concerns raised by Total Recall reloaded to the fundamental question of what Recall means for the concept of data privacy on a personal computer. The analysis noted that until Recall arrived, a laptop was a collection of separately protected data stores, an email cache, a browser profile, local files, a password manager. Each was distinct, each had its own protections. Recall unified them into a single searchable record. Each had its own protections. A proper wipe handled them by handling the underlying media. Recall changes everything that happens before the wipe. A Copilot Plus device that has been used for any period of time carries a unified, decryptable on authentication record of the user's working life, from emails and Teams chats to financial models, legal documents, and displayed credentials, including passwords that appeared on screen. The analysis identified this as creating what it called a pre-collection data destruction event, a category that did not previously exist in enterprise IT risk management. A device that has been powered on in a staging room, a transport locker, or a third-party logistics handoff carries that unified record. The practical implication is that Recall transforms every Copilot Plus PC into a machine that maintains a continuously updated dossier on its own user, indexed by AI and searchable by anyone who authenticates to the device or compromises its security architecture. Microsoft's stated design intent was to give users a photographic memory for their own computer activity. The documented consequence is a searchable archive of every sensitive thing that appeared on the screen, protected by encryption that a security researcher breached within a year of the feature's redesign. Windows 10's end of support in October 2025 created the conditions for the most significant mainstream Linux adoption discussion in years, a discussion that Recall had already intensified, because it forced millions of users with hardware that cannot run Windows 11 to choose between paying for extended security updates, buying new hardware to meet Windows 11's TPM 2.0 requirements, or migrating to an alternative operating system. The Windows Forum's October 2025 analysis confirmed that Linux adoption was being propelled by hobbyists, gaming communities using Proton and Steam, and budget-conscious households facing this binary choice. The same analysis documented Linux's specific privacy advantages over Windows in terms most Windows users had never previously considered: user-controlled updates and transparent package management that keep telemetry and background services under direct user control, open-source transparency, enabling code inspection, and community audits that make hidden telemetry far less likely, and lightweight distribution options that extend hardware life on systems that cannot run. Windows 11. Computing for Geeks. April 2026 comparison confirmed the market share context. As of early 2026, Linux holds approximately 4.7% of global desktop operating system market share, a number that has been climbing steadily since Windows 10's end of life. The comparison noted that the Linux share is being driven partly by Windows 10 EOL pushing users with older hardware toward alternatives, and partly by the privacy concerns that Recall and Windows 11's telemetry have made impossible to ignore. The users discovering Linux in 2025 and 2026 are discovering it specifically because of Windows privacy and hardware requirement concerns, not in spite of them. Windows 10 EOL and Recall together created the most privacy-motivated Linux migration conversation in the operating system's history. The honest comparison between Windows and Linux privacy requires acknowledging both sides of the argument and not overstating what Linux provides. How to Geek's January 2026 analysis confirmed that Linux is not automatically more secure than Windows, and that the software running on Linux can still collect its own telemetry. Installing Linux and then running Chrome, Spotify, and Slack on it means the companies behind those applications are still collecting behavioral data, regardless of what operating system sits beneath them. The operating system is one layer of a multi-layer privacy picture. The analysis also confirmed that an operating system is only as secure as its user, a point that applies equally to Windows and Linux, and that should not be used to dismiss the structural privacy differences between them. These are genuine and important caveats, but they do not change the fundamental architectural difference that Recall makes visible. Windows in 2026 is an operating system whose manufacturer built and shipped a feature specifically designed to photograph everything the user does, store those photographs in a searchable database, and make that database available for AI-powered search. The feature faced a security breach within weeks of announcement, a full year of redesign with significant engineering investment, a second security breach by the same researcher after the redesign, a university-wide ban with the word unacceptable in bold in the official statement, and a pulling back of the entire Windows 11 AI push that Windows Central confirmed in January 2026. Linux is an operating system whose source code is publicly auditable, whose telemetry is configurable or eliminable, and where no equivalent of recall exists or could be quietly added without the entire developer community seeing it immediately. For users whose threat model includes an operating system that photographs their screen every few seconds and stores the images in a searchable AI-indexed database, Linux is the direct structural answer to that specific concern. It is not the answer to every security question, but it is the answer to this one. The practical path for a Windows user whose privacy concerns about recall have become a reason to explore Linux in 2026 is documented in the migration guidance that the Windows Forum's October 2025 analysis confirmed the community has developed in response to Windows 10's end of life. The recommended approach, confirmed across multiple community migration guides, is testing via a live USB before committing to any installation. This approach carries zero risk to the existing Windows installation. A live USB boots Linux from a USB drive without touching the existing Windows installation, allowing the user to experience the operating system, test hardware compatibility with their specific machine, and assess whether their critical applications work natively under Linux or through compatibility layers like Wine and Proton. User-friendly distributions like Linux Mint are specifically recommended for Windows migrants because the desktop environment is deliberately designed to be familiar to Windows users. The installation process is graphically guided and takes under an hour on most hardware, and the community documentation for common Windows to Linux transitions is among the most extensive in open source software. The Windows Forum analysis confirmed the recommended migration sequence: inventory hardware and applications to identify Windows-only dependencies, pilot Linux on non-critical devices, or run a dual boot with a clear rollback plan, and migrate email, documents, and cloud storage before making any permanent commitment to the new system. The same analysis confirmed Linux's core privacy advantages in the migration context: open source transparency enabling code inspection and community audits that make hidden telemetry far less likely, user-controlled updates and transparent package management, and no equivalent of recall, no advertising in the interface, and no mandatory cloud account required to use the operating system. Recall made the question of what your operating system does with your data unavoidable for every Windows user who read about it. Linux's answer to that question has been consistent since its first release in 1991. Every line of code that runs on your machine is available for you or anyone else to read, audit, modify, and verify. That answer did not change in response to recall. It was already there, exactly where it has been since Linus Torvalds published the first Linux kernel in 1991. Recall did not create Linux's privacy architecture. It revealed why that architecture matters. That is what Windows privacy is being destroyed by AI. And that is what Linux did. It maintained the architecture that makes the question of what the operating system does with your data one you can actually answer, because the answer is in the code, and the code is publicly available. That was always Linux's answer. Recall just made it relevant to more people than ever before. The confirmed source pack for this video includes GeekWire's April 2026 confirmed report on Total Recall, Reloaded Bypassing Recall's Rebuilt Security Architecture. Resource Recycling's April 2026 confirmed analysis of recall as a pre-collection data destruction event. The University of Pennsylvania's confirmed campus-wide recall ban citing unacceptable privacy challenges. Windows Central's January 2026 confirmed report on Microsoft pulling back its Windows 11 AI push. Computing for Geeks April 2026 confirmed reinforcing cycle of trust. ExpressVPN's May 2026 confirmed operating system security and privacy ranking. Windows Forum's October 2025 confirmed Linux migration guidance post-Windows 10 EOL. Every data point in this video is sourced. The privacy story tells itself.